My name is Tessa Morgan. I'm 36 years old. And until a few weeks ago, I would have told you, without hesitation, that my marriage was solid. Not perfect, not exciting in the rom-com sense, but solid in the way that actually matters when you've built a life with someone. I'd been married to my husband Ryan for almost 8 years, together for 10. We have 2 daughters, Lily, 7, and Mara, 5. We owned a house in a quiet suburb. Both girls were thriving in school. We'd finally stopped arguing about money. Last year, we even got a dog. It wasn't fireworks, but it was real, and I thought real was enough. Looking back now, I realize how dangerous that assumption was. Ryan worked in corporate operations, one of those jobs where half the meetings are about meetings, and everyone pretends it's important. He used to come home drained, complain about pointless emails, bad leadership, corporate politics. Then something changed. He started coming home lighter, energized, talking about work like it was exciting. At first, I was happy for him. Then I noticed the pattern. There was this idea today, he'd say casually, loosening his tie. Or, my boss had an interesting take on leadership. Then later, she really understands how people work. Her name was Camille. At first, she was just a name. Then she was a presence. I joked once, half smiling. Wow, sounds like Camille's your work wife. Ryan froze, just for half a second. Then he laughed, too quickly. Don't be weird, she's just a mentor. I let it go. Because that's what you do when you trust someone. The morning everything broke, nothing was wrong. We had breakfast together. I packed the kids' lunches. Ryan kissed me goodbye like he always did. No tension, no argument, no warning. That evening, I was on the couch, half watching a video about fixing a cabinet hinge when Ryan walked in and just stood there. He had that look people get when they've already made a decision, and now they're just bracing for impact. Everything okay? I asked, distracted. Yeah, everyone is fine. Pause. I just need to talk to you about something. I muted the TV. He exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for days. I think we should try living apart. I blinked. Living what? Living apart together, he said quickly. It's a thing. We'd still be married, just separate spaces. I waited for the punchline. It didn't come. You're serious, I said. He nodded. I remember thinking maybe I was tired, maybe I misheard, maybe this was some elaborate misunderstanding. But then he started talking. About space, about personal growth, about how modern couples were redefining marriage. He spoke calmly, rationally, like he was suggesting a new phone plan. We could always move back in together if it doesn't work, he added. That was the moment my stomach dropped. Because marriages don't come with free trial periods. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just sat there, thinking about how to explain this to a 7-year-old. That night I didn't sleep. I replayed every conversation, every smile, every quiet moment I'd mistaken for peace. And one thought kept circling back. This didn't come out of nowhere. Something had already ended. I just hadn't been told yet. I spent that entire night awake. Not crying, not spiraling, just thinking. When the house finally went quiet, Ryan asleep beside me like nothing had detonated between us, I slid out of bed, took my laptop to the kitchen, and started researching. Living apart together. Late. At first glance, it sounded almost reasonable. Articles talked about independence, rekindling desire, couples reclaiming individuality. Then I looked closer. Most of the success stories were about couples in their 60s, or people whose kids were grown and out of the house, or partners who already lived in different cities for work. Not married parents with 2 young daughters who lived 5 minutes from their elementary school. Red flag number 1. By 3 a.m., I wasn't confused anymore. I was suspicious. So the next morning, I did something Ryan clearly wasn't expecting. I agreed. Well, I said over coffee, keeping my voice neutral, if we're going to talk about this, we should do it properly. He visibly relaxed. I think he thought this was the part where I'd cry, beg, or try to negotiate emotionally. Instead, I opened my laptop. If we're living apart, I continued, we'll need a formal custody schedule. Week on, week off doesn't make sense with the girls' school, so maybe a 2-2-3 rotation. His smile flickered. And we'll need to define holidays, birthdays, school pickups, extracurriculars, who handles doctor visits, emergencies. He blinked. Oh, I thought we'd just figure it out as we go. I nodded slowly. That's not really how parenting works. I scrolled. We should also involve lawyers, just to make everything official and avoid misunderstandings. His head snapped up. Lawyers? Yes, I said calmly. My cousin Elena is a family lawyer. She's offered advice before. The color drained from his face. I don't think that's necessary, he said quickly. This isn't a divorce. No, I agreed, but it is a separation, and those affect children. I watched him process that in real time. Then I moved on to money. Who's paying for the second place? I asked. How are we splitting utilities? What about groceries? Insurance? Transportation costs for the girls? With each question, his shoulders tightened. This wasn't the fantasy he'd been sold. By the time I pulled up the spreadsheet I'd made, rent estimates, duplicated expenses, childcare logistics, he looked genuinely rattled. I even added a column labeled dating expenses. Not to be cruel, just to be honest. I hadn't thought about it like this, he muttered. I know, I said softly. That's why I did. Then I asked the question that changed everything. So, where are you thinking of moving? He hesitated. Just a beat too long. There's this place, he said carefully. Oak Ridge Heights. It's nice. I typed the name in. Luxury apartments, high-end pricing, mostly one-bedroom units, and 30 minutes away from our daughter's school. Interesting choice, I said. Why? He shrugged. I just like the area. I closed my laptop, because suddenly I knew. This wasn't about space. This was about proximity, and whoever he wanted closer to. I didn't say anything that night. That was the first real shift in me, the moment I stopped reacting and started observing. Because when someone asks for space, but already knows exactly where they want to live, it means the decision wasn't impulsive, it was planned. Oak Ridge Heights stayed lodged in my head like a splinter. The next day, while Ryan was at work and the girls were at school, I looked it up properly. Not just the glossy website photos, the floor plans, the parking layout, the surrounding area. 1 bedrooms, no playground, no nearby schools. It wasn't designed for families. It was designed for professionals who didn't want complications. That evening, I made a casual call to an old college friend, Marissa, who worked in property management on the other side of the city. I didn't even ask directly, just mentioned the complex in passing. Her pause told me everything. Oh, she said slowly. Oak Ridge Heights? Yes. That place has a wait list, she replied. Most units are leased internally through referrals. A lot of corporate relocations. Anyone from Ryan's company? I asked, keeping my tone light. Another pause. There's a woman there, she said. Senior management. Moved in last year with her partner. I didn't need to ask the name. Camille. When I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at nothing. Because suddenly, every detail snapped into place. The enthusiasm, the buzzwords, the LAT proposal that magically benefited only one person. That night, I tested something. What about the girls' rooms? I asked Ryan casually during dinner. Should we let them help pick colors for your place? He stiffened. Well, maybe we should wait, he said. They might get confused. Confused. By what? That's fair, I replied evenly. So they'd stay mostly with me? He nodded too quickly, at least at first. I felt something inside me go cold. A parent doesn't suggest less time with their kids unless they've already decided their priority. A few days later, I reached out to his younger sister, Natalie. Natalie and I had always gotten along. She was blunt in a way Ryan never was. Asked questions people avoided. She was shocked when I told her about the LAT idea. That's weird, she said immediately. Ryan's been asking me a lot of odd questions lately. What kind of questions? She hesitated. Like how long after separating is it normal to date? And whether it's messy to date someone from work, and how kids usually react when one parent moves out. I closed my eyes. Then she added, oh, and he asked me if Camille was still with her partner. I thought it was strange, but I didn't push. I thanked her and hung up. That night, Ryan talked about us, like we were still negotiating. I nodded. I listened. I smiled when appropriate. But inside, something had shifted permanently. This wasn't a marriage in trouble. This was a marriage he'd already left, emotionally, mentally, strategically. And the worst part? He thought I was still playing catch-up. I wasn't. I was just waiting for the right moment to stop pretending I didn't see the exit he'd already chosen. I decided not to confront him. Not yet. Because confrontation gives people the chance to rewrite the story, to deny, deflect, minimize. And I didn't want excuses. I wanted clarity. It came sooner than I expected. We were sitting at the kitchen table one morning. Papers spread between us like we were negotiating a business merger instead of dismantling a marriage. Ryan was strangely upbeat, talking about how mature we were being. That word again. Mature. Like this was a lifestyle upgrade. I stirred my coffee and said casually, oh, I need your input on something. He looked up. Sure. Should I try to get a refund on the Florida trip? I asked. Or just change the names on the tickets? His mug froze halfway to his lips. What Florida trip? I let the silence stretch. The anniversary vacation, I said. 7 days, Beachfront hotel. I booked it months ago. Your parents were going to watch the girls. His face went through emotions so fast it was almost painful to watch. Shock, hope, panic. You planned that? He whispered. I did, I said calmly, back when I thought we were still a we. He leaned forward. Tessa, maybe this is exactly what we need. Time away. To reconnect. I smiled just a little. Well, I said, since you're planning this LAT thing, I figured you might want to take someone else instead. The tickets are paid for, non-refundable. Would be a shame to waste them. His breathing changed. I already had your ticket made transferable, I added. You can bring whoever you want. Then, lightly, almost absent-mindedly, I said, Camille might enjoy Florida. The color drained from his face. Why would you say that? He snapped. She's just a coworker. I shrugged. You're planning to move into her building. I assumed you were close. He stood up, agitated, pacing. That apartment thing. It's just a coincidence. You're reading into it. Interesting, I said quietly, that you're more upset about how I know where she lives than about what it looks like. That stopped him. For the first time, he didn't have an answer. He stormed off, leaving his coffee untouched. That night, as I walked past the bedroom, I heard his voice. Too relaxed, too familiar. I think she'll come around, he said into the phone, once she sees how much easier this is. I stood there, hand on the wall, feeling something inside me finally go numb. He wasn't afraid of losing me. He was confident I'd adapt. That was the moment I knew. Whatever came next wouldn't be about saving the marriage. It would be about protecting my children from someone who'd already decided they were negotiable. And I was done pretending this was a misunderstanding. I didn't explode. That surprised even me. Instead, I went quiet, purposefully quiet. Because once you see the truth clearly, yelling feels pointless. What mattered now wasn't proving I was right. It was making sure Ryan couldn't keep pretending this was some mutual, enlightened evolution of our marriage. I called my cousin Elena the next morning. She didn't gasp, she didn't judge, she just listened. Then she said very calmly, Tessa, you need documentation, and you need witnesses. So we gathered everything. The apartment application Ryan had already submitted, listing himself as single. The emergency contact, Camille, not me. The budget transfers he'd quietly started, siphoning money into a separate account. Screenshots of late-night texts I found on his tablet, messages he'd forgotten to delete. None of it was explosive on its own. Together, it told a very clear story. We scheduled a family meeting at his parents' house. Neutral ground. No room for theatrics. Ryan tried to back out that morning, said he was too emotional. I told him he could either show up or Elena would file immediately without his input. He showed up. His mother had made coffee, set out cookies. The normalcy of it made my chest ache. Elena laid everything out on the dining table, piece by piece, like assembling a timeline of betrayal. Ryan's mother cried quietly. His father didn't speak at all, just stared at the papers, jaw clenched. When the custody plan came up, Ryan finally spoke. I want joint custody. His father laughed. Not a warm laugh, a sharp one. You plan to move into a one-bedroom apartment 30 minutes away, he said flatly, and listed your boss as your emergency contact. That's not joint custody, that's abandonment. Ryan broke then. Tears, apologies, excuses. I wasn't thinking clearly, he said. I felt stuck. Camille made me feel seen. I stopped him. If you say one more word about how another woman made you feel while I was raising our children and holding our life together, I said quietly, this conversation is over. Elena took over. Primary custody would go to me. Supervised visitation for Ryan until he completed counseling. No overnight guests during visits. Ryan protested briefly. His own parents shut him down. The papers were signed through tears. When we left, his mother hugged me and whispered, I'm so sorry. I nodded. Because sorry doesn't fix what's already been dismantled. That night, I went home to an empty house. And for the first time since this began, I slept. Not because it didn't hurt, but because the pretending was finally over. 2 months later, the divorce was final. Not dramatic, not explosive. Just done. Ryan moved back in with his parents after everything unraveled at work, which apparently it did in spectacular fashion. Camille's partner showed up one afternoon with printouts. HR got involved. By the end of the week, both of them were gone. Karma doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just signs paperwork. The girls adjusted better than I expected. Kids are perceptive like that. They notice who shows up, who keeps promises, who doesn't ask them to make adult sacrifices for someone else's growth. Therapy became part of our routine. So did calm dinners. So did laughter that didn't feel forced. Ryan still leaves voicemails sometimes. Apologetic, emotional, promising he's changed. I forward them to Elena. Not out of spite, out of clarity. Because the thing I learned through all of this is simple and brutal. You don't lose a marriage when someone asks for space. You lose it when they start building a life that doesn't include you and expect you to applaud the effort. A year ago, I thought my world was ending. Now I know it was just narrowing, cutting away the parts that didn't belong. What survived is everything that matters. My children, my integrity, my peace. And that's more than enough.